Are you squishing us?
Yeah, you're not showing up on camera.
Oh, that's even better. Is this good? Okay. All right. So, forgive me, Tom, if I squeeze in your space here. So, I also have a Twitter account online called Wheel of Cussin on Twitter. I apologize in advance to anybody who's read it. So, we'll go ahead and hear from our panelists here. Introduce yourselves. Tom?
Hi, I'm Tom. I am 1/3 of Tom Gararia at the Wheel of Time Showcast. So we do a podcast about the adaptation of the books into the TV show. We've been doing 150 episodes. We've been working since the show's pretty much been announced. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here. And I think they put me next to Billy just in case I go too long and smack.
Allie?
Hi, I'm Allie. I'm a creative executive in scripted development for TV and film. I'm also the co-host of Wheel Takes, a first-time reader podcast. We also do industry perspective episode deep dives. And I also am the creator of the Brimwell Cup, where we do a March Madness bracket and vote on who the hottest character in the Wheel of Time is. It's impossible. And I am currently on Lord of Chaos, chapter 8. So we're going to try to keep spoilers to a minimum, otherwise my husband will come running from the audience to earmuff me.
Grace.
Hi, I'm Grace, also known as Vaden Chiad on Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter, some of you might know, but I also write a weekly column for thegreatlight.com, and I am part of a live talk show on YouTube called Threefold Talk on Multier Talks.
And Redfield.
So I'm Redfield. I have been a costumer in theater for about 15 years. I teach high schoolers about costuming at a technical arts high school. I'm a professional cosplayer, and I do actually write. I have academic credits. It's very weird for me. I write for Nerd Caliber, which is a nerd network about costumes for the Wheel of Time.
My name is Colin. I am one of the co-hosts of WWNtv Live, which is a podcast. We discuss the TV show through the lens of kind of looking at the books and talking about production and all aspects of that. I am also Will Elsine on Twitter Time. But yeah, that's it.
Okay, so we're going to talk about some ground rules first for how this panel's going to run, and then we're going to hop into it. So number one, we have spent quite a bit of time talking about these topics, both as a community but also as a panel. And so we sort of gained this out, and we're pretty sure that we're going to fill up all the time here. So we're probably not going to have a structured Q&A unless we need to at the end for time. If you really, really want to ask some questions, we'll try to leave some time at the end if it's really important to you. Otherwise, we expect that whatever your point of view is on a particular point is probably going to be raised by one of us. So if there's a particular topic that we didn't get to towards the end, you can start to bounce up and down your chair, and we may be able to get there. Okay, number two, again, reiterating, we're going to try really hard not to spoil anything past Lord of Chaos for Allie's sake, but we also assume that a lot of people in the audience, actually let's not assume, how many people in the audience have only watched the show? Wow. That is impressive.
One guy.
Okay. How many of you are reading the books because you watched the show? Wow. This is very different from, I asked this question in the panel on Friday, nobody prepared. There were a lot of people who had come through the show to the books on the Friday panel. So we're still going to try to keep it fairly tight to the eye of the world here. The speculation panel for future seasons is the next panel. So we're going to try to keep it tight, but obviously some things are going to bleed over. So with that said, first we're going to talk about episode 7, and then we're going to talk about episode 8. That is logical order. That's how we're going to do it. Some things might carry over because obviously these two episodes share some structure and some shared circumstances. There is one more ground rule that we're going to talk about. It is obvious that we're going to have to talk about the absence of Barney as Matt during the production of this episode. We are not going to speculate on why Barney was absent because we don't care. Okay, it's not relevant. We don't care. What we do care about, and what is going to be a valid topic, is going to be what did they have to do to work around that issue. And it's pretty obvious that there are some things that we would have changed if we had Barney available, and we think they probably would have done the same thing. So with that, let's do a real quick poll for each panelist. Give me one thing. Number one, what was something that you really liked out of episode 7? We'll start with Tom.
The cold open is, I think, I'm clear. Right?
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, I don't eat too much, so I'll leave it.
He stole mine.
Bane and China, what did you like the most about episode 7?
The cold open.
Is that the official position of 3 votes?
Yes, it is.
Red, do you dare to deviate from the consensus of the panel?
So I have like 2, so I'm glad that the cold open was taken. And just because I'm a stand-in, I don't care how it ends up. I'm glad that Len and I were before, like, we all died from waiting for
Right. They got there.
to come out in visual form.
Colin.
It's the blood snow, guys.
It really is a shame when you have an hour-long episode and its best moments are its first 5 minutes. I know that's not really what you're looking for, but it is a penultimate episode. You're expecting your climax in the next episode, and so leading with some real, kick-assery up front is not a bad place to put it. That's is that the audience consensus here that the blood snow? Now we come to what the audience is really here for. Number one, off the top of your head, what is something you did not like about episode 7?
Cold open.
Spot the Illiner in the room.
So I think this might be different for people, but the thing I dislike most about episode 7 is the love triangle teen angsty portion. And I guess they would have to like that.
He stole mine. I'm going first next time.
Yeah, Grace?
This might be controversial. I didn't really like the way they executed the revelation of the Dragon Reborn. I like that they did it, but I don't think there was something wonky about the payoff. It didn't build up with the right level of timing. So that was, for me, I was excited about it, but was ultimately let down with the way that it was done.
Red?
As we've already established, I love love, but that 3-way triangle is
Colin?
This one's probably a little more obscure, but I didn't love the reveal of Perrin's kind of powers and the way they kind of executed that.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean is when he sees this guide stone up ahead, and it seems frivolous, whereas he could have been the person who saw or noticed that the trunk was falling.
Yeah.
It seemed like that was, who cares about a guide stone? Like, do something that's a little more substantial.
Yeah, one is not surprised that the godstones are there. Since
Yeah,
they're
exactly. Yeah, it's like, there's a sign up there. Okay, you're on a road, obviously.
That's how roads work.
Matt could have just as easily been like, I bet there's a sign there, watch this. Does he even say, oh, there's a sign? Or does he just say, there's something up there?
Yeah, there's something.
Yeah, there's something. Thanks for that. And I'm gonna vote here on the love triangle. For me, the love triangle, when I as a book reader, I thought, okay, really? As somebody who's watched by that time each episode like 3 or 4 times, because I've watched it with family and then with other family and friends, all this other stuff. It's like, okay, I guess they kind of suggested this is a thing that was there, but I don't want it to be. Right? And so maybe they did lay some groundwork for this, but why? Right? What do we get for it? I've heard speculation, and I don't know if this is really there, if this is true. That I've heard speculation that they might have put that in there as a time filler because they didn't have like mad dialogue to go film, and that they might have said, you know what, we kind of got this in our pocket, maybe we should just do it. And I don't know if that's true because it doesn't really feel like there's any consequences that flow from that scene, right? Like that scene that they fight, they're angry, but nothing ever actually comes from it.
What about the sexual tension between Perrin and Rand?
Oh.
I was there. Not Rand. I mean, I'm not sure.
Did you see the shrub?
How far are we? We're like 10 minutes into the panel, and now we're shipping already.
I ship all the time.
Love, right? But just not this love.
Everyone.
Okay, so one question I have, there have been people, I've seen divided opinion on this, but I have to pick this on. Allie, you have to commit first on this one. What do you think of how they did Machin Shin in the ways?
I loved it. Okay, here's what I feel. It's because in the book, it's kind of like Mashichin's kind of like Mashidar Wind variation, whereas I feel like with some like blood discussion. I am much more afraid of my own intrusive thoughts, and I've been calling it the wind of intrusive thought. It's taking these things that are in your head and exacerbating them and creating conflict amongst the group. But what I also love about it is it's a way of sort of naturally giving us that those internal struggles and externalizing them in a way that feels natural. It's that exposition in a way that feels motivated and natural, and I loved that about it. That was brilliant.
I agree with that. I thought that was, it's annoying to have, Perrin stare in the mirror and say, oh, I can't believe, I never really loved my wife or whatever. Instead he has the voice in his head yelling at him is much more interesting.
Right, and that's the thing about TV, right? You have to externalize these very internal journeys that these characters are going on, and that can be really hard for characters that don't often say how they feel, because most people don't say what they feel. And so I thought this was a way of doing that in a way that made me go, every writer now hates you because you did it that way.
All right, any other thoughts on Machin Shin, or is that the panel's consensus? Is that it is the right call?
Consensus.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. All right. We've talked about love triangles, but not the real one. Okay. I guess really it's more of a box than a triangle. We haven't talked about men. Okay. Men gets introduced in episode 7. I'm curious, what does the panel think about how men is introduced and generally how they handled her? Red, you want to start there?
Unpopular opinion, I never really liked men.
Oh, get off my panel.
With a caveat, okay? I really liked her in the beginning, and then as
when she had stuff to do.
and when she and then she feels like she lingers for a while, and I don't understand that. So and that's is that a
It's okay, go on.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think there's any spoiler that I'm gonna say.
No, you're fine.
I mean, it's the same.
All right, let's stop it.
I feel the same way about Perrin at points where I'm like, get all the fucking so I'm on the fence about how I feel about men in introduction. Because I never had a good grasp for myself on what I thought the character was. Because she was this really badass thing, and then she was like,
Remember, Allie is stuck in the Lord of Chaos, so she doesn't know what happens.
when she comes in, I feel like she's a badass casting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that she's even
And then she
Fingers on
does weird things to make it work.
You're digging your hole right now.
I really enjoyed Mendes. I enjoyed the introduction. I think that's exactly what it is. It's an introduction to the character.
Yeah.
I mean, I think as far as that's concerned, it was very successful. We see kind of the main bit about men, we see that, which is cool. We get some tidbits about what might happen in the future. If you read the books, you get some hints about that. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think like as far as like what she is, she's a barkeep, and I think she nailed that because I'm a barkeep. So.
One thing that I thought that because I'm not a barkeep, in any sense, she did something that I never got from the books, which Kay Alexander did this. She brought this just withering, dead-eyed, sarcastic, are you kidding me, look, effortless. And that's not something that's really conveyed out of men. Episodes is going to be able to hold her own as an actress.
Well, I love that it feels like they played up this fact that, they played up this fact that, she's been walking around seeing people die since she was a kid, and that's gonna do something to a person, right? It's gonna give you a bit of an edge. It's gonna make you maybe not always you're gonna mince your words, and I think that she's I loved it. I thought it was fun.
It's funny you say that because in episode 8, when she starts having these visions of all these people dying, she's like, oh, this again.
Yeah, and she's like, oh, this kind of thing has been happening since I was a child.
Yeah, like this isn't even a trauma for me.
Yeah.
And not only that, having people constantly asking you, the people who know about your abilities, like, what do you see, what's going to happen? I feel like that just is a setup for being pissed at people all the time. Just maybe even lying to them or not telling them things because you're just fed up with it.
Right.
I just want to throw, we talked a lot before the show came out about how that might be a difficult thing to do, to show the visions themselves, and I think that the show did a really good job with it to kind of visualize that so people really understood what was happening, and it didn't look kind of cheesy and weird. Like in the book it's described, like she sees like visions floating over people's heads or whatever, and like I'm like, that sounds like the Care Bears or something. And I thought that they did a very good job of like, it's kind of like she's seeing them and she's also seeing what they're going to be doing, and like I thought that was right.
Yeah, I was really worried that she was gonna walk into a bar and every person was gonna have like this charm bracelet around them.
Right.
It's like, here's a list of all the things you need to screen cap so that you can check them off as we go through the episodes.
It also easily could have gone into That's So Raven territory, which I love the show, but we're not Disney Channel, right?
I think also I enjoyed kind of to Allie's point. Min has a lot of something I always found interesting about Min is that she has a huge burden. She's been seeing these things forever, and she continues to see them without wanting to. And I like that they lean into the idea that she was very concerned about consent when it came to learning about what she was seeing.
Yeah.
She was concerned about, understand what you're doing, and do you want to hear this? And check me with Lorraine, like, do they know what this is? I thought that was really good.
Yeah, are you really sure you want to do this?
Yeah.
It's really great.
Yeah.
So I want to go ahead and move us on to episode 8 now, and we talked very briefly about this a minute ago, but I want to dive into it now because I feel like it's more evident on episode 8. These 2 episodes were produced after the onset of the pandemic, and I feel like episode 8 is where we really feel this the most. What do you guys feel like? Where you felt like, oh yeah, if they had been COVID, that might have been a little different.
I think it would have been very different. If you think about the things that they lost, just by virtue of the fact that the pandemic was happening, it was pretty devastating for a lot of reasons. The pandemic, but on the entertainment industry, they lost their location. They lost their practical trolley actors. They lost a lot of money replacing those things with CGI that they had to do very, very quickly. They lost money on the location as well and had to build a location very quickly in a short period of time. And every day that you're not shooting is also a day that your production is losing money, because you are still paying to have those people working for you. So, you know, I know people who had things in production that they just ran out of money, and they're just dead projects. And so I truly think of it as, my husband puts this really well, it's like you have a gymnast that's mid-air doing a trick, right? And you take the mat away from them, and then you lower the floor 3 feet, and then you go, you stumbled, idiot, right? When I kind of look at it as, I'm like, it's a miracle they didn't fall down, you know? So that's where I come from when I'm looking at episode 8, is I'm going, I'm amazed Rick didn't have a mental breakdown.
And they took away, and they lost a central actor.
And on top of that, they lose a central actor.
Yeah.
So they have to recast, rewrite, all of those things. So when people are like, why didn't they take more time? Why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that? Believe me, those were discussions that were had. And it was in the best interest of the production to try to salvage as much as they could and move forward, because they were losing money every day they weren't. And
I will editorialize slightly. They're also handed the added challenge of, you're adapting the end of the Eye of the World.
So my controversial thing is, when I watch episode 8, it's one of my favorites just because I'm like, they landed anywhere.
I think, to piggyback off of you, I think from an industry standpoint, yeah, 7 and 8 were but the fact that they accomplished it, and the fact that because they also have to think about, at that point, what is next? Like, we could be dead, but this could go on for who knows how long. So I know that people kind of can be in about Rand going off on his own, but like, now you can have uber tiny groups, and they can be 8 feet apart. And if this continues, we can just follow Rand forever.
And COVID didn't just limit who you could have on screen. Like, we can't have as many extras, we can't have as many, we can't have our stunt actors, we can't have all those things. We also had the limit of crews, right? So all the behind the scenes folks, we had way less help. I say we like I'm on the show. But we as a group, as an industry, we lost a lot when it came to the behind the scenes help as well. And it was chaos. And on top of that, we had to pay for COVID compliance, which for some people could be as much as half of their budget. Because you have to have a COVID compliance officer, you had to have testing every week, you had to have all of these ducks in a row to make sure that we wouldn't suddenly have a super spreader event just from making a movie.
I mean, one thing people forget from the timing is this is pre-vaccine. Like, there's a lot of this stuff that was happening. There is no vaccine. Everybody has to be tested to get onto the set, right? I mean, and if somebody shows up, you gotta shut down for a while.
And again, every day that you're shut down, you're losing money.
Yeah.
I want to throw one other, like, it was kind of after the filming that race also happened. So the character that they cast as Inktar in season 1 is in those episodes, but then he left the show and he's on Willow now. And so they recast Inktar for season 2. So they had to re-edit episode 8, change that guy's name, and take any substantial part that he may have played in that episode out, because he was coming back. So even the changes that they made to kind of make episode 8 work, they then had to go back after the show was filmed and go, well, we can't do that anymore. So like they had like every card in the deck stacked against them. And I agree with you that I think that just the fact that it was out and it was coherent, like that's not something that we should dismiss, right? That's not to say that we didn't have problems.
Not to say this is
But I think context matters, right? Context matters a lot in this instance.
So with that, let's go through, with that going on. We have no Barney, we've got COVID stuff going on, and now we're going to go through this episode. We start with a cold open that I think nobody saw coming. Right, nobody saw this coming, which is we actually get a depiction of an argument between Rustin and Marshall Posey arguing about, the strikes on Shadow Rule, and we get to see the Age of Legends, and oh my goodness, what do you think about that? All right, so I got a question. This question is for Rick. How'd you like the costumes in that? How'd you like the depiction of the of futuristic costumes?
So it's very interesting, and I mentioned this in for like every panel that I've been doing this week, is that you have to look at the costumes in a non-Western lens, which can be very hard.
Right.
So while it's not necessarily my aesthetic, I'd be interested to see what someone from the Middle East or India has to say, because I know that style of clothing, like the longer coats with the sheer bottoms and the looser fit, is like really like that aesthetic, their aesthetic. So while it's not my thing, it is probably someone's thing.
Next question. This again is for you.
Yeah.
Right? How badly do you want to sneak onto set and steal Lord Egelmar's bird outfit?
I will hunt that thing down, and I will find it. This is my ring. I know you. Well, also, just another two-industry thing. At that point, also, we are also dealing with a cloth shortage.
Right. Right. That's true.
So while I can be super frustrated about the fact that they did not change their clothes for 3 months, I can understand that happening.
Well, not to mention, you can't have as many costumers working together.
Yeah.
Because, again, you had to cut your crews.
Yeah. And we're talking also, sorry, every one of those costumes, just for perspective, is made like 10 times. So it's not just like 90s green coat is not just one coat, there are 10 coats. Matt's coat, even though it looks like crap, like that. Thank you.
It's meticulously crap.
Intentionally, but there are like 10 of those. There's 10 of everything, so it's not just one piece. You're making multiples, and when you have to buy 20, 30 yards of fabric that all look the same in a shortage like that, I work at a fabric store. You can't find that. You just can't find it anymore. And that also boosts up your price.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did you guys like, setting the costume aside, how did you guys like how that scene went, the general idea of the acting in a foreign language, in a false language like that?
That was crazy.
How did you guys like that? Tom?
That's wildly hard.
Yeah, I think the performance the actors did was tremendous to be able to convey emotion and idea in a language that's not even, it's a made-up language, and they were able to do that. I will say that the scene did not land for me. I felt that I put it in conversations before, I feel like they're old friends, and he's saying, I know I have this new kid, but I'm going to take his college fund and buy this boat. And she's like, that's a bad idea. He's like, yeah, but I really want a boat. And I felt like that was, to me, that was the emotional intensity of the conversation. So that part didn't land for me. But, I think other people have just, seen it a different way, and I understand that. I think that that's not the actors, that's the way that they decided to film that scene. I think they did a tremendous job.
Grace, what did you think about that? How did you like that scene?
Yeah, I really liked it. I agree with Tom. I don't think that the emotional impact was there, and I feel like it could go either way on this, but in terms of when you actually look out the window and you see what's happening in the world, I didn't feel like the stakes were there. It didn't look like a world that was about to fall apart. It just felt like, Lou's there and just wanted to do this thing for fun, because maybe it would be helpful, I don't know. And so it didn't land for me because of that, but I also understand, I know there's other folks who feel like that's the point, that the fact that it was looking that way. But yeah, it was interesting. It's interesting to see that there's some changes from the books in terms of, they know the consequence of what they're about to do, and then having Latra be the Tom Erlin feat instead of Lou's. I think those are some interesting choices. I know Rafe has said every word of that scene was very intentional. So they did their research, and I feel like there's going to be a payoff as to why they made those choices, so I'm really curious to see that.
Any other comments on that, Holly?
Yeah, I personally loved that, to me, the relationship between Luce and Lashmasai it felt like it really mirrored the relationship between Rand and Egwene in a big way for me. I remember I'm going to paraphrase this wildly, but she says something along the lines of, I'm just a woman trying to make sure her friend doesn't go beyond what he's capable of. And I feel like that is very true of their relationship, Brandon and Egwene's, going forward. And so I really dug what they were doing there with those characters, because it felt almost like if we're thinking about these reincarnation things, I went, so is Egwene Latra? Like, what's going on?
I agree with that, and I like that line in particular because I think I personally liked the scene, and I think that line underpins the tone of the scene. So they are friends, and they've already had the fight, but it's about to happen, so let's just hash this out really quick,
Yeah, we're in problem-solving mode,
Yeah,
not yelling mode.
so it worked for me. But also another thing I liked was that the scene itself gave us some context for. It gave us a difference. Like we know what the present day looks like, but to see like, okay, this is what I call like the future past or the past future. So it's nice to see. It was nice to see the Age of Legends, and I think for new viewers, for people who are new to the story, it was nice to have that. Oh, this is where they're coming from, because we have some sort of understanding of where this place is, where the present exists in terms of our kind of outside perspective of what this whole timeline is, which I thought was nice. I think that was effective.
One thing that I'm not a big reactor. There's always these videos, reaction videos, as people watch episodes. I don't watch very many of those, but I've watched a couple. And watching them for people who have not read the books and don't know what they're in for, and just watching things as they go. When I see reactions to that reveal out the window of, dude, this is the future. This place is awesome, or it could have been, and it could have stayed that way, but stuff went down, right? And now, as our heroes have been walking through the wilderness, we've seen these like broken areas in the past. We've seen all this stuff, and one person put together. They said, "Oh, this is the same place that was in the first episode, right? Like it's the same camera shot. They're doing this on purpose to show this is a fallen world."
Yeah.
I'm glad that the viewers got to see that in a way that we get through exposition in the books, right? To actually realize this truly wasn't a cult legend. Right?
I think it's really interesting because I know that in the beginning, people who watched it were like, "This isn't it doesn't look like a fantasy show." And then if you really think about it, like it's not a fantasy show. It's the weirdest post-apocalyptic universe you've ever been in. This is not like some other thing. This is what happens when a super big society with technologically advanced just crashes. And how hard was that crash?
Right.
If it bounced them all the way back into like medieval times almost.
Or at the time of the breaking, far worse than that.
Yeah.
They're now back to, after 3,000 years, they're back to a vaguely Renaissance-y level of stuff. Go ahead, Josh. Yeah.
One other thing about that cold open that I like, I'm liking how the actor's name who plays Moose there, and I apologize, but one of the things that he did was he asked to watch footage of Yosha as Rand, and he mimicked Yosha's characteristics in delivering his performance. So if you watch that, you see he kind of tilts his head, he smiles the same way, he uses some of those gestures so that you as a viewer can make some kind of like subconscious connection, like this is the same person. And I just give that guy a lot of credit for taking that initiative and doing that. Because you didn't have to, I'm doing my own thing. But like that, I thought worked very well.
Yeah. That's really solid. That's really great. Yeah,
His name is Alexander Kareem. I think he's the first one.
All right, so I want to move on from the cold open, and I want to talk about somebody we haven't talked about very much, which is Moraine. Okay. Moraine, I feel, is a much more central person in this episode than she is in the last, 50 pages of The Eye of the World.
She gets knocked out like 10 seconds in, and then Deus Ex Machina comes in and is like, I got this. And everyone goes, what is this tree guy doing here?
So you have Rosamund Pike on hand on stage, or you can conjure up a green tree. I think I'm going to take number one. Yeah, we're going with, even though apparently she struggles against trash cans recently. She's not here for her combat prowess. Did you guys think that, so we basically got two big set pieces, or two sequences with her. One is she's going through the blight with Rand, and the second is she's sort of, we'll say, cradling Rand very aggressively. She's very aggressively cradling Rand for this encounter with the Dark One. How do you guys think that worked? Did that work as a story adaptation for you? Do you think that a lot of people have issues with the blight, I think, but there's a lot of COVID issues there, right?
Yep.
But as far as what they were aiming for, do you think it worked? Colin?
I think in particular one thing I really enjoyed about Moraine, and specifically Moraine and Rand, like moving through the blight, was the shift of their relationship. In so much as at the beginning of the episode, there's an exchange where he asks her a question. He asks her, like, was it hard to leave land behind, and she doesn't really answer him. And then over the course of that, he starts questioning, like, what's the plan? Like, what's all this stuff, And then she starts asking him questions. He does the same thing. He's like, I'm not answering your questions. And the power dynamic between them changes because now he's the dragon. And she knows that. And she needs him, like at the end of the day. So I thought that was an interesting kind of subtle thing that happens between them. And by the time they get to the Eye of the World, he realizes that she knows that she's going to die too, and he tries to leave her behind. And there's this kind of nice little thing where she comes with them, and they reconcile that. But I liked the shift of power between them over the course of that.
I thought there was a very literally visceral way that they showed this when he has the dream, or is brought into the dream, where the Dark One runs her through with, she's run through with the sword, I think is what happens. And the audience it's thrown immediately in front of the audience. You have got to get the idea of Rand with no safety net. And Rand is having to face the idea of, I have to go forward with no safety net, and am I going to be able to do this? And I thought that was great.
And, when I first encountered Moraine, I went, oh, well, this is kind of their Gandalf, right? And Gandalf is a little OP, right? He comes in and he saves the day. And we had to show, to raise the stakes of the show, that our Gandalf is vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And that really, Rand is the one going forward that we need to watch.
I want to go on what Colin mentioned as well. And I think that, you needed time for Rand and Moraine to be together, which doesn't really happen. And Rand, I think, is the most vocal person over the course of the first season in distrusting her, in not liking any of this, not thinking this is the right thing to do. And obviously, you understand why. In episode 7 and 8, like you get the context for his kind of extreme emotional mood swings, but
you're not my real mom.
I don't know who is.
This one-on-one conversation, and especially that exchange right before the eye, where I would say episode 2 level Rand would be like, okay, you can come in and die, that's cool. This starts to change that relationship and allows that to evolve to a place where it is going forward, where there is a backbone of I don't know if trust is there yet, but understanding that they both kind of want the same things, which is good for everyone, right?
I also think there's this idea of, that we have this sort of sense of lurking menace in Moraine in the early episodes where she's like, yeah, if one of them goes dark, I'm going to kill them. I'm going to do it. If the dragon, if something happens and we start to lose control of the situation, the dragon goes, I'm going to kill him. Well, that promise is delivered upon, right? She's ready to do it. But Rand's perception of that, I feel like, changes when he knows it's him. When he knows it's him, he's like, okay, I understand the ruthlessness because it's not going to get one of my friends in trouble. It's not, you're not going to screw over one of my friends. You're going to screw over me, and I'm okay. I understand that. I get that. I'm okay with that being on my shoulders. And I felt like that was very subtly done in this episode. Yeah. This is the first time we start to see Rand taking on all of the burden onto himself and not really distributing it around, which is cover your ears, Allie. A character flaw. Takes some time to be dealt with. You may uncover Allie. You're good. This idea that Rand doesn't really like to delegate risk is now something that we're seeing when he says, "Go away from the eye." Right?
Yeah.
I don't want you to die on my behalf. I get it. Right.
Yeah. But also that Moraine won't let him in. Like he asks her questions about himself. I love that she's like, she's so clearly in that scene where they're talking in the Blight. She's so clearly kind of going, I can't look at you as a person because I may have to kill you. I can't get attached to you. I can't let you in. I can't be vulnerable with you. And I love that. I'm interested to see how that evolves going forward.
I think she sees each of them as instruments for each other. Right? You're an instrument for me because I need you to save the world. And I also am an instrument for you and that I'm going to support you. Don't think of me as a human because I know I'm expendable and I don't need you to be getting worked up over this.
Yeah.
Right.
And my theory is that she was not planning on taking all of them to the Blight. I mean, that was going to be a Hail Mary, but I think she brought it up to them at that moment and that death to force the dragon to reveal themselves. I think she suspected that whoever it was probably knew and didn't want to come forward and say, I'm the dragon. And so she's like, okay, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to put you all at risk. If whoever it is doesn't come forward.
Yeah. Any other comments on that? Anybody else? Going once? I have wondered if Moraine went through Much and Shin and thought, oh, I bet the dragon knows who the dragon is now. Right? If I had to go through that, imagine what that person had to do. Right? Because I mean, she doesn't know. She doesn't know how the reincarnation system works. For all she knows, all of the sins of all the previous lives of the dragon were right? I destroyed the world. I rampaged through my palace and killed everybody, right? Like, did they have to live through that in those couple of seconds? We know that apparently Rand didn't, but she didn't know that, right? She didn't know what traumas that person was through. So, yeah, I think that's a good thought that maybe she was trying to just sort of push the issue to make the dragon come forward.
Yeah, it's not like Moraine to just reveal information just cause, especially if it's going to make them go, I don't want to go.
Right.
So,
right.
I think that's what that point was.
Okay, next up. Now that this is actually a perfect next topic based on where we've been going. Rand versus the Dark One. He shows up with this ridiculous Scooby-Doo mask. And he shows up with this ridiculous Scooby-Doo mask, takes it off, and you're like, okay. Usually on Scooby-Doo, it's Old Man Smithers. That dude is not Old Man Smithers. My wife's already gone. Okay. Like, that dude, I'm reliably informed that dude is a snack. That's what
This whole cast can get it.
So we've got the Dark One. We'll insist on using the formal title here for his plain job description. The Dark One is sitting here, is having this conversation with Rand. He's like, Luz, what are you doing? Will you please just put the sword down? I love that line. Please just sit down. How'd you guys like that, the way that they portrayed the Dark One and his sort of conversational style here?
I'll jump in first because I love it. And I love the whole way that they decided they were going to approach the conflict at the end. Like you made reference to it earlier, the Eye of the Worlds ending is like bonkers, makes no sense, right? And Rand, in the series, doesn't learn how to use the sword. You're not going to have a big sword fight. Like he's going to magically know how to do sword moves or anything like that. So to make everything this kind of psychological battle of wills, and to kind of play into the Dark One's background, let's say, and like how they approach this kind of this kind of first confrontation. I think it worked really well, and I don't know if they had somebody else in mind, and maybe they had the ability to do stunt training and fight. They might have done something like that, but I think what they did worked very well and allowed what you knew of Rand in this series. He's stubborn. He's strong-willed. He's got an innate sense of decency to kind of be the tools that he used to confront the Dark One. I thought worked well.
My absolute favorite moment from this episode was Brand's gotcha moment with the Dark One, where he goes, "That's not the woman I love." I clapped, I snapped, that moment, I cried thinking about it. I'm not even gonna keep going. But just yes.
Grace?
I just think Faris nailed it. I just love how smug he was and confident throughout the interaction in the Blight, but also at the Eye. And I'm sure most of you caught this, the way that he smiles as he's disappearing after Man channels. Like, I wanted you to do that. Yes.
Yeah.
It was just perfection. I am really a big fan of the way that they reimagined the events of the Eye, and how, I can't say for spoiler reasons, but I think you all, if you've read to the end of the series, I think they made a great choice by having that battle take place in the psychological sense. So yeah, I think it was fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that you brought up the smile, because I love that little moment, because I went, no one who dies has ever smiled in that sense ever. So in my view, and this is my theory about what happened at the Eye, and it's obviously different from the book, so I don't know. But I think we've heard about the Forsaken, we've seen these statues, we don't know what they are, and I'm not going to obviously say. What I think happened is they have 8 Forsaken in the show, and he's standing on the seal. I think that Rand let the Forsaken out, because he's standing on the seal, and if you look at the end, there are 8 cracks in the seal. So I think there may be some ramifications to this.
Ramifications.
Security.
Anyway, everyone knows now.
Okay, so my original thought was I liked the actor. I didn't understand what was happening when it happened. Allie said the thing, my mind is blown. I gotta reconsider it. Because now it makes way more sense to me. And I don't know if it was just like I wasn't paying attention, or because also I was jet lagged when it came out for me. Because I live in Connecticut and I was in Arizona, and that's 4-hour time difference. I was asleep. So I could have absolutely missed that. I definitely need to go back. But for me, the first reaction was, who is that? Like I get who it is because I've read it, but as somebody who has never read it, like, who's that dude? Why is he here?
He's that guy.
He's that guy, yeah. And I think also because they spend so much time focusing on the Forsaken, and obviously because they come up so much, I was like, is it a Forsaken? Is it, A, B, C, D?
Right.
And I was like, but that's not, but they're not. So I like what you said. I need to reconsider life right now.
Honestly, like when I first watched it, I didn't love it, but when I've gone back and rewatched it, I actually really liked it a lot.
Yeah.
I think that when I talk to some people some of my friends who are new to the story and are just watching the show for the first time, they really enjoyed it, and I kind of agreed with them. And a lot of them said like it feels kind of anticlimactic because there is no huge really huge battle that happens in a different kind of plot arc in a way, But for me, I'm like, no, I think knowing the story and knowing what they were dealing with as far as source material, I think they did a great job with that.
Yeah. I want to make one point, which Alex, you were talking about a second ago. The fact that one of the things that is revealed is that Rand cares about the agency of other people in this. The fact that he's like, that's not the woman I love because she has no agency. You have stripped her of her agency, and that's what makes it Gwen great. Right. That's the fact that that's what he loves about her is very revealing of both him and her. Right. Because as we know in future stories, the relationship between Egwene and her level of agency is a real issue. Right. It's important for reasons that Ali you know and for reasons that you don't know, right? And so, like this question of like how much control does she really have over her own life and her own existence? The fact that they put it right there, they put it right there. Rand cares about this, and you should too. Yeah. You're on the right side if you want Egwene to be making your own choices. I love the fact that they put that there.
And maybe this is silly, but just as someone who was like a little girl in the world once, I would have loved to have had a show where I saw a relationship like that, where a man said, my woman, the woman I love, is a woman of her own mind, and I will support her even if it directly conflicts with what I want. I will let her go. That's just amazing to me.
And then there's the other part. We have the other one where if it's another man, Lan and Nynaeve, right? Where I know that this relationship can't work because of obligations that are in the way and all these other things. And I love you anyway, and I'm super jealous of anybody who gets to make this work with you, right? And then they do it.
It's not going tomorrow. It's not.
I'm sorry. I've lived for years for that moment, and I didn't even know I wanted it. Where Nynaeve walks in the room, and Egwene's like, "Where you been?" Egwene's like, "Oh, I'm gonna be Nynaeve's pupil. I'm gonna be her student, blah blah." And that is not a I'm your student. Like, girlfriend, we need to talk, right?
Can I just jump back one last thing on the Rand?
Sure, we got 5 minutes left.
Okay, I was just, I think a lot of feedback was like, it was people who weren't thrilled with episode 8 was that it was kind of slapdash. And one thing that I thought was really well done is that the cold open ends with Luz looking at a cradle. And the confrontation at the end is Rand and Egwene and the Dark One and this cradle with Rand's possible child, and he throws away that opportunity for that domestic happiness, and I just really like that kind of cyclical echo. I think the show does that a lot over the course of the series, and I thought that was a really good way to kind of echo that in that episode.
I like the fact that the idea that the Dark One is the father of lies, and the best lies are the ones that you really want to be true, and that's what he's offered up there. And it's great that that's not just a Rand one, that's a loose there.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to one more thing, which is we've talked about sort of, you said, it feels like parts of that episode are sort of slapdash. There's a part that's come under a lot of criticism, which is, we'll say, the one power fireworks at the end with the literal fireworks. With the hands over the face. That's exactly right. With the women linking and fighting the Trollocs, and there's been a lot of questions about this. And I want to say, do you guys think it worked? Do you feel like this is the result of some changes that were kind of forced upon them, where they were adapting to circumstances? I think it was Ali or Grace had we were discussing earlier. You were thinking that, or no, actually it was you, Tom. You were the one who said that there's been speculation that Matt might have supposed to have been in that scene. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. I'll be super quick. Yeah, there was speculation that, like, in the original way that the script was written, that Matt was supposed to be doing what Perrin was doing, and that Perrin was supposed to be the one to resolve that linking issue.
You mean Matt was supposed to be with all the kind of things?
Stuff, right? And that Perrin's Perrin was going to have to, confront having to kill a woman again. And that was going to be the resolution.
Right.
So
to serve as a circuit breaker.
Rather than have this kind of weird, I'm going to suck up the power drain from you thing, which I don't know exactly what the dynamic of that was, that Perrin would be there, and then they couldn't do any of that. So, but I'm very curious about I feel like there's a lot of tension on this side of the
Resolve this tension in 2 minutes. Go.
Oh God, I hated it. This makes it make more sense. It did make sense to me to begin with. Why are you going to let the person who literally cannot channel enough to be a Aes Sedai channel through two women who know that they are super strong in the one power? That doesn't make any sense.
Because they don't know what they're doing.
I mean,
And they didn't know that, well, they didn't exactly share to Amelisa that they were, you know, the most powerful channelers that they'd seen in about years. They thought they had a bunch of sparklers and they had a nuclear bomb and they had no idea.
Naive didn't exactly report and say, Forsaken Class Channeler.
I don't even know how to channel, but it just happens to me. But I'm here to lead.
I consulted Wikipedia and it said I'm a level 26. I don't know what level 26 means, but that's what I am.
I'm a big fan of communication, and we know that that's happening.
In our view of time.
Therapy about this, it's taken me a long time to understand.
14 books of therapy.
14 books of therapy, and I keep going, talk to someone! No, but I just think that, like, we needed to have a discussion of, like, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? Let me think about this for a second. Like, that's what a good
So,
leadership do.
in fairness, if they had done that, if they had gone up to Naive and said, so what do you do? She says, I explode in a healing way. You don't want to put that in front of the trolls. You might want to put it on the wall, but she's controlling, right? I can't use that word. There's a word I'm about to use. I can't use it.
So I'm just going to say one positive thing and one negative thing about that scene. The positive is that it showed us that channeling and linking in particular is dangerous. And I think we need to know that going forward, and I think it sets up Egwene and Nynaeve to have some tension when they go to the tower, and maybe gives Nynaeve a little bit more motivation to mistrust Aes Sedai even more. So that's the positive side. The one thing I just can't get past, and that I don't think we can blame on COVID or actors or script changes or anything, is Nynaeve appearing to die and Egwene appearing to heal her somehow magically and make her come back to life. I just don't understand why they did that, and I can't get past it.
I will have that. If you look at the behind the scenes stuff, where they talked to the makeup artist, and she is talking about how they're doing this to kind of make up to Amelisa, but they're doing a slightly more subdued version for Nynaeve, kind of showcasing that she's not dead, she's Nynaeve the near dead.
She's mostly dead.
Mostly dead. Critically wounded, not dead Nynaeve. But I think what happened was, because of the darkness of the place that they're in, the makeup on Nynaeve's eyes looked way more intense than it did in that behind-the-scenes video. And so it telegraphed to the audience, I think unintentionally, that she had died. But what I think happened, and what I was confirmed kind of by the behind-the-scenes to me, is that she, her eyes didn't get all the way burned. Her eyes didn't get burned out. It was just, she was just singed. She's super
singed. All right.
Super singed.
So the super singed.
Yeah. Just a little toasted marshmallow.
All right, so here I have to officially stop. We've hit the 11 o'clock mark. I want to say thank you very much to our great I didn't see anybody jumping up and down their seats as we wanted. If you guys have questions or stuff you want to talk about, I suspect a lot of that will be about the next season. That's the next panel. Thank you guys for coming.